Real Talk the podcast. We just keeping it real. Inspirational, motivation. It's something that you can feel. Authentic, I know you can tell. Hosted by Kimberly Sherrill. We got food for thought. Come help yourself. One of a kind like nobody else. Yeah, wanna see you mentally grow in a major way. Play this back like day to day. See all that stress and doubt, just watch it fade away. There is nothing you cannot achieve. Good vibes, yeah, we got that. Kimberly, go ahead and talk to him. It's the Real Talk Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to another lovely episode of Real Talk the Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Sherrill, and I have the pleasure of having in the guest chair with me today, Ms. Dee Bowden. So I want to just welcome her right now. So Dee, if you will, tell the audience who you are.
Well, good afternoon, Kimberly. And as I normally start off, I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this fabulous podcast around the world. I am Dee Bowden. Super excited to be a guest today. I am originally from Boston. I actually live in Maryland now. And some fun facts about me. I love Ferris wheels, smooth jazz, and hot air balloon rides. Most people are like, what? Smooth jazz? Well, yeah, definitely. But the hot air balloon ride, that's how I celebrated my 40th birthday. And so it's actually a cool, fun fact because you don't think of most people doing hot air balloon rides. People do, skydiving and some other odd stuff. But I happen to love hot air balloons, so that was what I did. And then Ferris wheels, just because they are beautiful, they're relaxing, and I've had the privilege of being riding the one in Atlanta, in downtown Atlanta, Chicago, out of Navy Pier. Boston, where I'm from. I heard there's a phenomenal one in London called the London Eye. That's on my bucket list. So hopefully I get to do that next year.
Awesome. Yeah, the London Eye is also on my bucket list. And so it is one of those that I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to do as well. So you mentioned that you grew up in Boston. What was that like?
Well, growing up in Boston was fun. I'm split between Boston and North Carolina. So basically my parents came up from the South, but actually I was raised in Boston. So I grew up in the city, but every summer I spent my summers from the time I was a baby until I was 18 years old in a little town called Mount Olive, North Carolina. So if you go into the grocery store, if you go in the pickle aisle, you'll see a jar that says Mount Olive Pickles. That's the town that my grandparents are from. And that's literally where I spent my summers from a baby till I was 18. But growing up in Boston was fun. Grew up in the church, did school, fell in love with the arts. So I'm a music person. So I love theater. I love arts. I love drama. And as you can probably see behind me, I love books.
Awesome. I'm a book lover as well. And as soon as you said Mount Olive, I immediately did think about the pickles. That is so funny. So after high school, what did you do next?
So after high school, I went off to college. I went out to a small private college called American International College. And I thought I was going to do something in psychology, but I realized I didn't want to do that. So I have a bachelor's degree in human services and human relations. So I learned pretty early on that I like to solve problems. And so discovering that real quickly actually helped me to switch majors. So I did human services, human relations. So I learned how to develop programs. And then after college, I got my first job working for a supermarket retail chain. So I was in a management training program for 2 years. I did that. So I learned everything about the supermarket chain. So I have worked in every, years ago, I worked in every department. So you have to spend a day learning all the things. And I was like, wow. So I figured out at the end of all the different departments. So we're talking meat, frozen foods, produce, bakery, all that. And I realized, don't like any of those. I really like being up front. I like dealing with the money, and I like dealing with the customers. So I ended up being a customer service manager, and I had a team of cashiers and baggers that I was responsible for. So I was responsible as you go in a grocery store, all those lines that are open up, and you got to make sure everybody's moving through and getting their groceries rung up correctly, things are bagged correctly, shagging the carts. So when I go to Costco now and I see the guys or ladies moving all those carts, I was like, that used to be me back in the day. I've done all that. So I have a great respect for retail because of having done all those jobs. So I know what it's like to have to clean up a spill on aisle 4. I know what it's like to have to grab all the carts. I know what it's like to try to make sure that you teach people how to bag groceries correctly. I know we don't do that as much anymore because most things now are self-service. But back in the day when I grew up, you actually bagged your groceries, and it was really important to square the bag and line everything up correctly and take care of the customers, because you were building relationships. Even how you managed the customers' food also was a part of that relationship, because the customer would come back, oh no, I want Susie to bag my stuff because she knows how I like my things. So it was really important even back then.
Okay. I was thinking as you were talking that there was a time when to own a McDonald's, you literally had to be able to work every single position within that store before you could buy into the franchise. And that definitely played a big role in the customer service, because like you say, when you go to Costco and you see people doing the different jobs, you have an appreciation for them because you have experienced that yourself. So I think, that's awesome. That's a perspective that many people should have. So you founded BCS Solutions. Yes.
I
Tell
did.
everyone, what is BCS Solutions?
Sure thing. So BCS Solutions. So the best way I can tell you about BCS Solutions is through a story. So I love telling stories. So if you don't mind, I'll share it by a story. Is that okay? Perfect. So about 15 years ago, I worked for a small IT firm outside of Boston, where I'm from. I actually have been so my career has been in collections and receivables management and contract administration. So I got hired as a collector, part-time, working from 4 to 8 Monday through Friday. They had $8 million worth of sales on the books, but not in the bank. So to give you the backdrop, it's a small IT firm. They've sold software licenses, computers, everything with IT. They had all these accounts, and so they said, "Here, Dee, here's your list of accounts. We need you to go figure out how come we've got all this money on the books but not in the bank." So I happen to be a believer, so I said a short prayer, and I was like, "God, I don't know what happened here, but I need you to give me some quick knowledge on how to figure out how they have this much money on the books but not in the bank." So I went to work and figured out that, number one, all the accounts had been processed. So basically, the orders had been done, the sales had been made, but nobody was doing the back end, which is my end, called collections. And so I did $6 million. I recovered $6 million in 60 days while working part time. As phenomenal as that is, right about October 24th or 5th, the CEO says, "Listen, we need to have a chat. If you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whenever he or she says to you, 'Listen, we need to chat,' you usually know that's not a good sign." You're like, uh-oh. So we come downstairs and he says, "Listen, I want to thank everybody for your services across all the boards, so across sales, across order entry, across accounts payable, accounts receivable. But," he said, "we've made an executive decision. We are closing the company, and you've got 30 minutes to go get your stuff and leave the building." I'm like, "What?" Really? I thought he was kidding. He's like, "No, I'm serious. We're shutting it down. You got 30 minutes to leave the building." So after I picked myself off the floor and sat with all my emotions, I was like, wow, this could happen to any company at any given time. Because if you're an employee, you're going to work, you're thinking that your company is managing their finances, their contracts, their sales, and you're banking on the fact that you go to work and everything is cool in the gang. Well, I just like I did, I have recovered $6 million in 60 days, and I'm thinking we're good. And now I'm part of a team, so I'm part of a collections team that's recovering this much money. But to find out that, no, regardless of how much money we had collected, there were still some executive decisions that were made to close the company, and all of our lives were changed 2 months before Christmas. So after I pick myself up the floor, I sit down and I'm like, okay, how does this happen? And then what can I do to change the conversation? So out of that, I went back to school, and I went to school for a year, and I went through a business acceleration program. And then I launched BCS Solutions because I created it to do two things. One, which is to work with small and medium-sized companies to look at their cash flow and look at particularly how much money are you leaving on the books because you won't go collect your money. And then number two, learn how to manage your cash flow, which basically means learning how to manage your sales, knowing how much money is outstanding, and then how to actually get it collected. And so that's why BCS Solutions exists. It's to teach small businesses and small and medium-sized companies how to not end up like what happened to me. And because of what happened to me personally, and we just watched other companies like Payless Shoes and Charmin Charlie's, some Kmart stores. I don't remember. There's some others, but I know for sure Payless Shoes and Charmin Charlie's were impacted. So because think about it, they had sales, They had contracts, they had orders, they had invoicing, they had collections, but they didn't have enough traffic coming in for them to keep up and keep going. And so I keep and here's the other thing: they were at one point a small business, and obviously they grew. And I keep looking at what's happening to small businesses, the fact that they're making great sales and they have great contacts and contracts, but they're not making sure that they're collecting their money. And that's why BCS Solutions exists, is to make sure that you as a business owner, do well and sell what you sell, but don't forget to collect your money. And because I say this all the time, the sale is not complete until the money's actually in the bank. And that's why BCS Solutions
Wow,
exists.
I can definitely agree. And as you were naming the companies that, have, went out of business, I'm also thinking about, of course, right now during this time that we are recording, we're living during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it surprised me of how many trucking companies have went out of business during this pandemic. But as soon as you begin explaining, cash flow and, collecting your money and things like that, I was like, that is probably why, because when I tell people I know, individuals who have lost their job, who were truckers, their immediate reaction, well, how is that possible? You see trucks on the road every day.
Right. And how it's possible is this, because so for example, if whoever's listening, if you are a small business, one of the things I talk about all the time is needing to know the state of your flocks. Flocks is a biblical term for basically meaning how the state of your accounts. So if you have a trucking company and you have contracts with several different accounts to deliver products, you got to track that system. You got to have a way to track how many contracts you have. So the way I describe it is like this. So make it simple. I'm old school, so I use Excel. You have an Excel spreadsheet. The name of your first column would be the name of your customer. The second column would be how much is the contract for. The third column would be when are you supposed to deliver those products or services. Fourth column would be when are you supposed to bill. Fifth column would be when are you supposed to get paid. And sixth column is what's the name of your customer service rep or your salesperson who helped you get that contract. And the reason I talk about that is because for the small companies that potentially have gone out of business, I contend that they didn't have a system that showed them how many customers they had, number one, and two, how much money was outstanding already, and then three, how did they not track this and not know when those payments were supposed to come in? Now, understand that there's always exceptions to every rule, but ideally, if you're tracking your accounts, you should know how many sales you have for the month and how much money is coming in for the month. And then you have to have a system in place to plan on following up to get the payments. And then obviously, most importantly, take care of your customer and figure out what's the disconnects. If you haven't been paid in over 30 days, first thing should be getting on the phone, talking to your customer and finding out what's going on, number one. Number two, solve the problem, because usually they will tell you you haven't processed your invoice for whatever the reason. Take the notes, ask them to follow up via email, and then address the issue so you can get paid. The goal is for you to work really hard and provide excellent service, but it's also to make sure you get paid for your service or your product. And I contend that there are small businesses that have gone out of business because they were so busy chasing the next contract or next agreement or next whatever that they neglected the back end. But the back end is just as important as collecting the sale.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to be paid.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants to be paid. So
yep.
I want to ask you next, what have you learned over the years of you starting your company, BCS Solutions, to now? Like some things that maybe in the beginning you did not fully know or understand about being an entrepreneur to now.
Sure. Well, I can tell you the first thing is that this is my second company, because I started another company 10 years ago and failed miserably. So what I learned the second go around was so I'll go back to the first company. So the first company was a collection agency. I started 10 years ago because, as I said at the beginning of my story, I've been in collections. So recovering money, collecting money, getting people's cash flow, that's what I've been doing for most of my career. So I thought because I knew how to do that in my career, it would just transfer very easily to doing the same thing as being an entrepreneur. Not at all. No, ma'am, no, sir. I was like, what? So, I figured, I got all these. I got my degrees. I said, I got this piece of cake. Nope, not, nope, not at all. So first thing I learned 10 years ago was, number one, I didn't understand the importance of operations. I didn't know that you needed, you have to have sales, and you have to have leads, and you have to do marketing, and you have to have a back office, and you need to have a structure, and you need all these things, and you have to continuously network and build relationships and get people to refer you and all these other things. So I went out on just straight adrenaline the first time around. I was like, oh, I'm good at this. I've recovered all this money. I know how to do this. Even though I had gone through a business program. I said, okay, I've got I did an 8-week program, had created a business plan. It looked beautiful. I had all my projections, yada, yada, all that stuff. And I was like, ooh, I gotta, so it's kind of like this, like, when you go to school and you learn all these things in a textbook, and then you try to do it in real life, you're like, this don't look like the book at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was my first business. I started it 10 years ago, failed miserably, and because I thought, because I knew how to collect, I figured I would figure out everything else, and I didn't. And so I made a little bit of money, and I had a few customers, but I basically had one and done customers. So to answer your question, what did I learn? I realized that, number one, you just can't have a one and done customer. What that means is I had one customer, like, so let's say you said, hey, Dee, I'm going to give you, a couple of accounts. I need you to collect these old accounts for me, but I'm good after this. But it wasn't like we would continuously work, and I would continuously work with you to make sure you didn't end up owing money. People would give me their old accounts. I would collect their money. I'd get it done. Then they'd be straight, and we're good. So I learned, number one, that you have to continuously have, leads and customers and sales and operations, and that you cannot do all of this by yourself. That's one thing. So I shut down my business. I went back to work, and I've been a contract closeout specialist for 10 plus years. I recovered money for the federal government. And then I went back to school. I did a business acceleration program, actually, with Steve Harvey. So he had something called Act Like a Success. And so he had a school that was called Act Like a Success Business Acceleration Program. So I spent a full year in school learning how to become an actual business owner. So we talked about sales and finance and operations and marketing and social media and relationships and sponsorships and all these things. So I did all of that. And the difference this time is I still have a day job, and I'm building the business part-time, as opposed to just jumping out there the first time. Because what I did the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I was young, and I was like, oh yeah, I got this. No, this time, no. I'm what's called a dualpreneur. I have a regular day job, and I build my business while I'm working. And so that's one thing I learned. The second thing I learned is that you have to continuously find opportunities to learn. So I am almost always in a webinar or a training. I'm finding other like-minded people that are like myself, that we meet up and we talk about the things that are going on in your business, so you can learn. Well, did you know that you need this? So for example, one of the things I know that a lot of people don't know about becoming an entrepreneur is that you need to set up your business legally. Like, you need to have articles of organization. You need to be, don't be a sole proprietor. At the minimum, set your business up as an LLC. That would be number one. Number two, you definitely have to have an EIN number, which is an employer identification number. That's the social security number basically for your business, like you have your personal social security number for yourself. Number three, you need to have a business checking account. So those are some things I've definitely learned. So you definitely have articles of organization, EIN number, employer identification number, and have a business checking account. 4, depending upon what your business is, you need to find out whether you need to be licensed to do what you do. And 5th, eventually get some business insurance so that you can protect yourself. So those are the things I've learned this go around that I didn't know last time. So. And all those things are in check with BCS Solutions today, for sure.
Well, those are all, great things to learn, starting your business. And I love the transparency of, stating that you did have a business you started, fresh out, and it was not successful in the first round. And you took that model and learned from it, and then birthed, a new business. So I definitely commend you for that. I'm sure so many of our listeners can relate to that particular story. So you are also published. You have some articles that you have written for some notable publications such as Black Enterprise Magazine. You also have a book that you have been a co-author in. So you want to tell the listeners about your publications?
Sure. So last year, a friend of mine actually heard my story, talking about how much money I've recovered, and she said, "You know what? You need to tell this story to entrepreneurs, like on a larger scale." So she recommended me to be I'm sorry, she recommended me to be in Black Enterprise, and so Black Enterprise magazine actually did a feature story on me about sealing the money leaks, and so we talked about why entrepreneurs need to know the money leaks, and the money leaks have to deal with, the state of your accounts, your day sales outstanding, and all these things that have to do with business. And so I talk about what happened to me again. That's that same story, and then I talk about why paying attention to your cash flow as an entrepreneur is super important. So that was one. The second opportunity that came about was that Thrive Global magazine reached out, and they are part of the Huffington Post, so one of the arms of the Huffington Post, and they reached out and said, "Hey, what do you do again with money?" I told them, so everybody hears my story about collecting money. So they're like, "Well, we need you to talk to the entrepreneurs about why financial piece is so important." And so that's what that happened. So I was referred to those magazines, and then they did an interview and wanted to talk to me about what I do. And then last year was a big year in terms of getting out there. So Black Enterprise was one. Thrive Global was second. And then the third thing was I was a co-author in the book called Entrepreneurial Elevation with Dr. Cheryl Wood, who's a visionary. So 31 authors came together, and we talked about the journey of being an entrepreneur, from managing cash flow, which is, of course, that's my lane. So people talked about, the mindset of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. How do you structure your business? What do you do? All these different things. So the book is split in two sections. We've got all the practical things you need to do a business. Then you've got stories, people that have already been on the entrepreneur journey and have had some success. They share their stories as well. And so that's what we did. So last year was a big year in terms of just getting out there, telling my story, and then seeing it evolve into all these different things. And so I feel extremely grateful and, more importantly, blessed.
Awesome. Yes, 2019 was definitely a great year for you. Definitely hope that 2020 is even greater, and every year moving forward. So you talk a lot about the importance of getting paid for your services and, keeping that cash flow. So what do you recommend businesses do if they are having trouble collecting their money? Do you think that how long should they continue to call this company saying, "Hey, I haven't, been paid for the services or the products that you received," and what their next step should be after they reach like a certain point of maybe 45 days?
Well, the first thing you do is, number one, step one is, if you are still owed money after 30 days, 31st day, you need to be on the phone. Secondly, if you have a copy of the invoice, you need to send a reminder through an email, and just, because first of all, in your contract or agreement, it should have, who do you send your invoice to? And I would make a phone call to the accounts payable department and introduce yourself. Tell them, "Hi, my name is Dee. I'm calling from such and such company, and can I speak to the person who handles accounts payable?" That'd be the first thing. Secondly, after talking to that person, he or she will tell you what is the reason why you haven't been paid. And third, you have to give a pause and listen and let them tell you, and take good notes. Fourth, ask them to tell you what happened via email. The reason I tell you to do it via email is because you need to track what happened, because the email allows you to see what's going on. So you have a conversation going forward. Fourth, I would also resubmit the invoice and say mark it with an A, or say revised or something, so that they know that the invoice is coming back again. And then sixth, I would also be looking at, if you had a let's say, I'll say it this way, if you had a checklist or a deliverable, which means you were supposed to deliver something, did you deliver everything that you were supposed to do per the contract? Because there might have been something you missed. So the best example is this. Most people can understand if you order products, and let's say you ordered 10 bottles of water, but you only got 8. But that means you're short 2. Well, you're not getting paid for all 10 bottles of water because you're short 2. So you got to go back and check, did you do everything that you were supposed to do for those deliverables, to make sure that everything has been addressed. And if it hasn't been, you're responsible for fixing that before they're going to pay you. So those are the things I would
Okay.
recommend.
So, listeners, I hope if you have any of these questions that you are taking notes on all of these things, because Dee is definitely giving some great advice about getting paid and what those steps are. So what I would like to do right now is ask you some questions, and you just give me your honest first answer that comes off of, the top of your head. All right, you ready? All right.
I'm ready.
So tell the listeners one book that you have read that has truly had an impact on you as a business owner.
Automatic Millionaire by David
Awesome.
Bach.
Why is that?
Because he explains to you the process of setting up your accounts as a business owner, and also not just as a business owner, but also as an individual. And then also it's just it's a complex book, but it's a very simple book, meaning that if you sit with the glass of water and just follow the steps, you'll see how to set up your accounts correctly, and then you can do it for your personal accounts, how to manage your money, how to set up a budget, because you need to set up a budget for your business just as well as you need to set up a budget for your personal life. And he gives you these very easy steps, and it's an easy read, and it's also something that you can actually apply, and over time you'll see results. It's called The Automatic Millionaire, but it's more to talk about how do you position your money and your mind to plan to become a millionaire over time. And here's the process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely not an I Dream a Genie situation. It's a process, but it's a great read. It's an easy read, and it's something that you can do for yourself personally. And also, if and when you have a business or plan to be in business, the same steps can apply for your business.
All right. So my next question is, if you could pick one person to be your business bestie, a celebrity, millionaire, or whatever, who would you pick to be your business bestie, and why?
My business bestie, a celebrity? Queen Latifah.
Okay, awesome. Why?
Why? Well, number one, because of who she is and where she's come from. She comes from the city, like me. She grew up in the city. Number two, I've watched her evolve from a rapper to a model to a business owner to an actress, and she's pivoted. She's always still been an entrepreneur across all those lines, but every time she's needed to pivot, she's maintained her same standard of excellence and same ethics, but she's just pivoted when it was time to make a shift. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to shift, because you can start out doing this one thing and you can invest a ton of time, energy, and money, and you're not making any money in it. And sometimes you need to take a look and go, okay, this lane that I've chosen is not working. So how do I need to acknowledge that this piece isn't working, but what are the lessons that I've learned that I can use to pivot and to go in a new direction? I mean, that's what if you look at the things that we've had that are doing right now, we're working from home. The reason we're working from home is because, number one, because of the pandemic, but number two, there have been all these companies that have created all these virtual spaces like Zoom, like Squadcast. I think Microsoft has something called Microsoft Teams. All of them figured out that that people still need to do business, but you need to do business in another way, because sometimes you just can't meet a person face to face, but you still do business. You just have to be able to do business in a different way. And so you have to be able to pivot, but you still need to make sure you hold on to your core values, the core things that make you you, but you have to be open to change. So for example, as I shared about, starting my business and then closing it down and failing miserably and starting again. One of the things that I've added to BCS Solutions that I didn't do last time is I speak. I'm a speaker now, so I'm constantly on podcasts and webinars, sharing my knowledge about collective cash. I'm also an author, and I've shared that to tell you about needing to shift, because I thought I was just going to come in and just get accounts and collect money and go home. No, different change. I realized that in order for me to get my message out into the world, I had to change myself and change how I would deliver what I do. I still collect money at the end of the day, but I use different venues. So I use podcasts and webinars and being an author and being a speaker, and then obviously being featured in major magazines as well. But all of that was because I needed to shift my mindset and shift how I would get my message out and be open to the opportunities. And that's something you have to be able to do as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. You have to be able to pivot and shift.
All right.
As necessary.
That is great. That is great advice. And I can agree with you 100% about being able to pivot in your business. And Queen Latifah has definitely been able to do that. So as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you receive a lot of unsolicited advice from others. So what is the best and worst unsolicited business advice that you have received?
The best advice I've received has been to, number one, keep being visible. One of my coaches says visibility trumps ability all the time, and she talks about the importance of being visible. People need to be able to see you, because people can hear you, talking a story, but when they get to see you and they get to see you consistently, and you have this, you're the same person on screen as you are off screen. You deliver the same message. You're consistent. And consistency over time builds integrity, and it builds trust. But you hear this whole thing about you got to be known, liked, and know, like, and trust you. Well, people can't know, like, and trust you if they don't see you, and if they don't see you out constantly talking and sharing, giving the same message. Worst possible advice I've ever gotten was, "Oh, just jump, just jump, girl, just jump." Like, are you serious? No, yeah, no. No, and that would be no to that, whatever power. No, no, you just don't jump. And here's why. I know people are told, because they're gifted in, let's say, doing hair, being a barber, whatever your knowledge, skills, or abilities are, you're given those gifts to make a difference. That's the first thing. But secondly, I shouldn't say you can't. It's not wise to just jump out here and become an entrepreneur without, number one, having a plan. Because number one, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. You know how to do what you do really well. And that part's great. That's your gift. But in terms of you don't know how our business is run. You don't know how a business is set up. I went over that earlier in the conversation. But you don't have the structure set up, number one. Number two, do you know the first thing about finding customers? Nope. Do you know how to sell? Nope. You know how to market? Nope. Do you know anything about having a business banking account? Nope. You're gonna use PayPal. PayPal is not your business checking account. It is not. It is a service. It's a tool to process money through. You need a legal business checking account. Fourth, people tell you to jump all the time, and they don't talk about the risk. It is not wise to jump out here and become an entrepreneur when you have a family that you are responsible for. If you still have a mortgage, you still have rent, you still got a car note, you got kids. No, you don't just jump out there and do that and just abandon everything that you've done. You build your business on the side. It's called a side hustle for a reason. You keep your day job and maintain your stability, the place of normalcy with what you do. But as you're in your off hours, you work on building your business. You go to school, you take classes. If you need to, you go to the Small Business Administration. They've got free classes and free training that will teach you some of those things in your local. I'm sure in your local neighborhoods, there are schools and there are webinars and there are other things that can teach you that. But the worst thing I've ever heard some shows about, just jump, and not give them any tools on how to actually start this entrepreneurial journey and what it requires, because it requires time and energy and money. And then the other thing is, if you do jump, do you have reserves? You have cash reserves set aside, so if things don't work, you can dust yourself off and go back to work. All that stuff. Most people don't tell you that part. They just say, "Oh, just jump, girl. You're fine, girl. Go get started." Sorry, I sound like Daffy Duck on this moment, but I was like, child, no, don't just jump. You need to have a plan. It's kind of like that line. If y'all remember the movie Pretty Woman, and I think I forgot the lady's name who worked with Julia Roberts. She says, "Do you have a goal? You don't want to be turning tricks all your life. You gotta have a goal. You gotta have a goal." And the same thing of being an entrepreneur. You just can't jump out here with no goal, no plans, no direction, and you're like, what? Yeah, no. And if you're not sure about how to start a business, the first thing I would do, number one, is you can go to a bookstore, you can go on Amazon, or you go on Google, type how do I start a business. You can get a book. You can start with just reading. That'd be the first thing. And if there are businesses in your neighborhood, I would, go ask the owner if you could take them out for a cup of coffee, and just ask them a few questions. Start to gather some information so you could figure out if you actually have what it takes to do this, because the journey is not for the weak.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
not.
And I think that this is the first time I've heard someone quote the character Kit from Pretty Woman. That's one. Do you have a goal? And that's absolutely right. I live by goals. So my last question in this hot seat round for you is, what is the last training or webinar or conference that you attended that you found to be very beneficial?
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm in one right now. I'm actually doing a virtual speaking training. I'm actually doing one with Dr. Cheryl Wood right now. So it is very beneficial, because I'm learning about the speaking business, and how do I plan to continue in this journey, and actually eventually, get on live stages. I never thought I would be on a live stage before, because I've been pretty comfortable with doing podcasts and webinars. But in the training, I decided that I wanted to learn how to begin to speak, and actually how to prepare what's called a signature talk, and how I will learn to deliver that in front of lots of people with their eyeballs on me. And I'm like, ooh, child, really? Hey, you ready? Okay. But it's what I wanted. It's what I want to do, because it's in terms of pivoting, it's the next thing I need to learn how to do.
Awesome, awesome.
So
So,
that's what I'm doing right
listeners,
now.
again, we've been talking with Ms. Dee Bowden today, founder of BCS Solutions, and her entire company is based around the one thing that we all want is to get paid, about your cash flow. So, if you will, tell the listeners where they can find out more information on you, if you're on social media, if you have a website.
I definitely do. So you can find me. Okay, so Dee Bowden. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's actually my name reversed, so it's actually Bowden D. So the website is www.collectthecash.biz. That's www.collectthecash.biz. And for all the listeners, there's a free book for you. It's actually called Collect the Cash. If you go to www.collectthecash.biz, halfway down the page, put in your first name, last name, and hit subscribe, and you can actually get my free ebook, which will teach you the 5 steps on how to collect your money.
Awesome. And everyone loves a free book. So definitely, listeners, go to the website right now, www.collectthecash.biz, and
Yes.
subscribe so that you can get your free ebook and start collecting that cash. Dee, I want to just say thank you so much for joining me today. This has been very informative, insightful, and definitely inspirational. Listeners, please visit the website and continue to look out, because 2019 was big for Ms. Dee Bowden, but I know 2020 is going to be even bigger. So, you have any final remarks before we close out this episode to the listeners?
First of all, I want to say thank you to you, Ms. Kimberly, for this opportunity. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly. It's been fun. It's been relaxing, and most importantly, I'm excited to get to share the message, collect the cash. Number two, to all of the aspiring and business owners in general, make sure you're doing the following. Please track your accounts. please track your accounts. And if you have any challenges with getting paid from any customers, please reach out to me. Go to www.collectthecash.biz. There's a calendar. You can actually schedule a free 15-minute call with me, and we can talk about your accounts and help you figure out how to recover your money. But most importantly, stay focused, stay consistent, and stay blessed.
Awesome. Awesome. So, listeners, I want to say thank you again for tuning in to Real Talk, the podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Sherrill. I can't wait to join you again. I hope everyone is having a beautiful, beautiful day. Stay real.